So the Gemara brings this challenge, Heikidami, basically saying, "Is this really so?" or "Show me how this can be so." And so this is going to challenge the idea of Kav Barabamot. And here's the way it's going to challenge. It's going to say, "You're giving me a definition of stuff in a certain amount of space, and you're saying if I walk by and I see that there's stuff in a certain amount of space." I know exactly either that that stuff I can keep or that stuff that I have to announce in some way that it's lost by someone. And the Gemara is going to say, no, 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 it's not about that at all. It's all about the owner's intention. If the owner intended to put something down and come back for it, it doesn't have to be a certain amount in a certain space. It can be even a small bit. And if the owner didn't intend to put it down in a way that he wants to come back for it and doesn't really care about it, it can be a huge amount of stuff, and he's never going to come back for it in some way. And so this is really what the Gemara is saying here. It's saying it's not about this formula. It's about what? And that's question number 10, right? It's all about intention, right? There's another criteria that we can use. And that's really what it says right here. And we spent some time talking about this in class, right? Because this is how it reads in the Talmud. Is this really so that a kav barabah mode always is scattered? No. If by way of falling, if the stuff kind of fell out of your hands, it could even be more stuff and you would consider it scattered. But if it was a small amount and someone intentionally put it down, it could be an even less amount, would not be considered scattered. It would be considered what? Right, that's question number 11. And so that challenge seems to work because what comes next is the question of um, is so we now have this idea that intention matters, and but when might the formula of Kav in for Amot actually work? Right? We said it won't work when because intention matters. But what might, question number 12, be a case where Kav in that formula, Kav in our Ba'amot would work? It would work when we weren't sure of a person's intention. And quite honestly, much of the time, we aren't sure of a person's intention. And here's the case that the Gemara says is actually the case we're dealing with. And they use the term here, askinan, which is actually very, very similar to the word la'asok in our prayer for study engagement, which says to engage in Torah. So it's saying, what are we engaged in here? What is the idea? And it's saying, oh, this actually the whole formula of arba of kav and arba mode of knowing that that's the formula of scattered stuff. We're talking about a threshing floor. What's a threshing floor? It's a place where people would bring their wheat and they would pound on it. And in that way, it would separate the good parts of the wheat from the bad parts. You would scoop up the good parts and take it home with you, and you would leave the bad stuff, right? So we're going to call this now Kate's Threshing Floor, open hours 9 o'clock to 5 p.m. And it turns out everyone's not doing this at the same time. Everyone has their time they're signing up to go. And so let's pretend that Lior signs up to go from 9 to 9:30. She kind of does her stuff and she gathers up her stuff. And as she gathers her stuff and leaves, there's this stuff on the ground. Xavier comes in and sees that actually there is a kav of that stuff of wheat in Arba Amot. And he says to himself, did Lior think that she would come back for this and get it? Or did Lior think, I'm just leaving it. I've got enough stuff and whatever, the next person can take that. It's fine. So Xavier needs to make a decision because Lior isn't there and Lior isn't around. And so Xavier doesn't know her intention. If she had been there and saw her place the stuff down, then she could be clear, she wants to keep it. If she had seen it, her just kind of like put up her hands and look at it and walk away, then she would know that she meant to leave it for anyone. But Xavier doesn't know, so this is where this formula actually does work. So, and I guess the real next question is when Xavier looks at this stuff, when he part of his brain is saying, is this the amount in the amount of space? But he's also wondering about two main things. about what are the things that are going to make Lior decide if she would return and pick up this stuff again. What are those two main things? This is question number 13, we'll call it. I don't know if I did question 12, right? And see, these two things are the factors that go into her decision process are something called tarach or chashuv. These are main words for today. Tarach is another word for that is a tircha or a burden or effort. Chashuv is value. So the value of that stuff and the effort that it takes to collect that stuff. So why are these two things important? So that's question number 14. And if you were to choose which is more important, that would make you, Xavier or Lior, return for stuff. Is it the value or is it the effort that it would take to actually collect it? Okay. So which one would you consider? That's question number 16, we'll call it. Okay. A lot of people in class, by the way, say it's really about the chashuv part of it rather than effort. Like if something is so valuable, I don't care about the effort as much. All right. But good. So now we're going to get Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to ask a series of questions. And by the way, Rabbi Yirmiyah is whatever Rabbi Yirmiyah does. At the end of this, we know that we're going to get the word teku. We're going to get the word teku, meaning I don't know the answer. So let's kind of understand how it is that he goes about doing this. So he says the following. He says, why is it that Lior is returning for the stuff? Either it's because the stuff is valuable or the stuff requires not a lot of effort to collect. Here we were looking at Kav in 4 Amot, a 24, a volume of 24 things of wheat in 4 Amot. And this would be considered stuff that Lior would or would not return for. That's question number 17. But what if instead of Kav in our Amot, what if we cut that in half? And what if we said a half of the Kav, so instead of 24, it is 12. And what if it's not in 4 Amot, but 2 Amot? Now, in some sense, that would seem to be the exact same thing. 24 in 4 Amot, the ratio is the same as 12 in 2 Amot. But maybe not. Why is that? Let's think about now what might be different if you think that the overriding value of someone returning is value. Would that now change if how would that change? How would the idea of value change with not 24 but 12 of those items? Would that make you more or less likely to return? And then in a smaller space but smaller numbers, how would that affect your effort? Okay, so those are two questions. We'll call that question how would change in value affect your decision to return? That's 19. And 20, how would the change of effort affect your ability to return? Okay. And then Rabbi Yirmiyah asks another question. He says, let's pretend that instead of cutting it in half, we would double it. Meaning, instead of 24 in 4 Amot, how would we double it? That's question 21. We would double it by saying 48 volume of 48 eggs in not 4 Amot anymore, but 8 Amot, right? Again, part of us would say that's the exact same thing. It's the same ratio. 24 and 4, 48 and 8. Same thing. But maybe not. Maybe not if the values that you're thinking about are either chashuv, value. Right now you have not 24, but 48. What does that do about the value of collected value? And what about effort? We have not 4, but 8 amot. What does that do about making it more or less likely to return or not? Okay. And after that, now, all of a sudden, Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to come up with another idea. He says, what if it's not wheat that we're collecting in this space, but what if we're collecting shum? What if we're collecting sesame seeds? Now, I happen to know that if you ever try to pick up a sesame seed, you're going to understand that its tarachnis, or the tircha value, is high or low. Yeah, it's pretty high. But what about the chashuv, the value of a sesame seed? Well, I happen to know that in the time of the Talmud, sesame seeds were very, very expensive. So all of a sudden, is that going to make it more or less likely for you to return? And what about something that's a little bit bigger, a tamar, or let's take even the biggest thing, like a pomegranate, a rimon. Now, pomegranates were not so expensive, but they're really big. So how does its not expensiveness affect your ability to come back or not? And how does its ease in picking up affect your ability of wanting to come back and not? So at the end of all of this, we get the word teku. We basically have the Talmud lifting up its hand saying, I have no idea what the answer is. Let's let Elijah come. Why is it? Why is it they throw up their hands in exasperation? What is all of this Talmud trying to say? And if you don't know the answer for this, I would talk to Kate Gelb, because she actually expressed it in a very, very beautiful way. Um, and I think that's it I guess so. I guess our last question, we'll call this 25, is what now can we say about the assumptions that we make? We said the Torah said as assumption people always want something back. Mishnah had an assumption that people are going to try to get back stuff of value and stuff that they can prove it's theirs. And what is the Talmud going to say? Let's see if I have the answer to this. Oh, I don't even have the answer to this. You're going to have to tell me what you think the answer is. All right, and that's it. Thank you.